Good morning, guys. This is Frank from In the Footsteps of World War II History again. I wanted to do an update on my Reich Chancellery plaque that was recovered in 1945 with paper provenance, including Dana Derlin, Peter Zichel. They recovered this item and have sworn testimony of it being picked up. Now, they are both OCS and CIA operatives at the end of the war, and that gives it more good provenance. And here is the stamp from Arno Brechner, the guy who actually made this. And I wanted to include all my Reich Chancellery Berlin stuff that was recovered. Okay, and in the sworn testimony about this being picked up, which has bullet holes and war damage, is these plates right here that say Reich Chancellerie der Führer. Those were also recovered and is on the paperwork from Dana Derlin and Peter Zichel. Not that only, but Reich Chancellery silverware and some original photos of the Reich Chancellery. Now the update that I have was Peter Zichel, who did the sworn testimony for for Dana Derlin. He was still alive, 102 years old, about a year or so ago. I contacted him via email and was successful at getting his response at 102 years old and clear of mind. And I have that also, the email that had his response pretty much saying that yes, they did recover it, and it was located originally in the rubble, or the rubble of the new Reich Chancellery, and talked about the plates that were nearby and probably in the dining facilities. But he had given me, again, additional testimony about how they recovered it in Berlin Reich Chancellery. So that was the update. Now, ironically, I was trying to follow up more, but he had passed away a few months after I had made the original contact. So that email was pretty interesting that he replied back in reference to how they recovered this and so forth, talking about that. So that gives additional provenance on this item and what I call an update, which was a surprise for me. Okay, and this is a better view of my Reich Chancellery items. I got some more upstairs, but this is the bigger stuff. Okay, and just to get everybody a good look, this is 40 pounds. 40 pounds. And there's the damage, bullet shots. Bullet shots. Now this item is, like I said, 40 pounds, original art from Brechner. Just like the two humans statues that he made in the Reich Chancellery. This being an original art and one of a kind, probably worth a good bit of money. Could be 100,000 or more, what people might be willing to pay. Anyway, if you had any questions, let me know. Hello guys, this is Frank from In the Footsteps of World War II History. Today we're covering a actual tapestry, a sort of like a banner, but made out of tapestry for the Reich Chancellery or Reichskanzlei in Berlin. And these were recovered in Berlin at multiple areas of the Reichskanzlei and the old Reichskanzlei. There's a lot of documentation about this, about where they were found. There were certain rooms, and they were at the lower level bunkers, or even some reports of more being upstairs on the second and third levels. And then, of course, there's an infamous video of the Russian officers walking through the chancellery during the end of the war, and they actually trample and walk over it with video evidence showing that these things existed and came from Berlin. Okay, now just to go over the quality of this heavy tapestry type materials and threads, elegant quality. Look at that. Embroidery is just amazing. More embroidery from top to bottom. And this one is in mint condition, or pretty darn close. And a lot of these actually got burned, tore up, soaked, pissed on, shot up. And typically you wouldn't find any in this kind of condition, or not as many. Now, I don't know how many of there are, but there's at least 10 that I know of that exist, possibly more, spread throughout the Reichskanzlei in Berlin. Look at that quality of workmanship. I mean, it's an amazing piece of history. Amazing quality. That's the word I'm looking for. Workmanship, quality. Okay. There are a couple of sizes. This is more like a smaller medium, and there are some that were documented that are larger. And these things are heavy. And this one is actually longer, which you see I got it folded up on top. There's another like 2 feet. Okay. Well, anyway, this is the tapestry from Berlin Reichskanzlei, or Reichskanzlei aus Berlin. Tapestry. All right, anything you want to ask, just put it on the thread. Okay guys, this is Frank from In the Footsteps of World War II History. This is the second part of a first part from earlier this week, involving items that came from the Berghof and Berchtesgaden and the bunker system. Some of the things I have is from Eva Braun, envelopes with her name marked on it. Greeting cards from Eva Braun and her husband. And then there is a menu, unused menu from the Berghof. And then again from Eva Braun, we have a napkin that came out of the bunker system. And also from Eva Braun is a locket with her initials, and it had a picture on the interior. And then of course here is a uniform brush and a formal napkin, and these come from the Berghof or otherwise bunker system, but I think the uniform brush came out of Hitler's bedroom. A couple more things, of course, is there is a Eva Braun napkin and dinner set with her name, initials with the butterfly. That's one complete set, and a napkin. Also have a dedication from Adolf Hitler to Otto Meissner, and this was from Berchtesgaden. And then we have 2 more items. A book that came out of the bunker system with, it's missing the Adolf Hitler library stamp. It was tore out. And I guess a wine glass or something kind of glass. Okay. The book is not in any good condition. Has some issues with it, but okay. And you can see where the stamp was removed. So they thought there was money in that, of course, and there is, but it would have been better with the book. Okay. And here's the story about its liberation. And the wine glass goblet has some provenance. Almost everything I have here has good provenance. But this one has the provenance and the soldier's name and date it was recovered from the Berghof. I need to do some research on it. I think the name was Mike. And I got to get clarification on the light pencil marks on the interior. So again, this is the Berghof bunker system. Items recovered with provenance, mostly. And if you have any questions, just let me know on the website. Hello guys, this is Frank from In the Footsteps of World War II History. Just now showing you on video is a Blütenorden made out of wood, period correct. Very nice and neat and pretty heavy. Okay, this was recovered in München around 2017. Okay, München. And the person who dropped it off didn't want to be identified back in 2017. All I know is it was recovered in a beer hall basement and turned into a military collector of sorts. I was able to identify where this actually came from. What beer hall, what Bierhaus, Keller it came from. Okay? So through a lot of research over the years, it was very hard to identify the plausible location of the beer hall. Okay, and I believe I've done it. Over the years, things slowly appeared on the web about a beer hall renovation. Okay, and the renovation is done and complete, and is completely overhauled into a restaurant-style beer hall. Now called Haxenbauer, and the original location is Sternecker Brau, and that should be an interesting name if you're historically inclined. That is the location for the DAP, Deutsche Arbeitspartei, and a fellow by the name of Adolf Hitler who joined that organization. That was their meeting spot and their area of operations. Sternecker Brau was a very important thing for the movement, and it was later turned into a museum, and that's all it was a museum for the NSDAP over the years. And as a matter of fact, during the marches, during the annual march of the Putsch, they would stop in front of the Sternecker Brau and have a moment of silence and then continue on their march. That's how important that location was. Now, like I said, this item was recovered approximately around 2017. in the basement of a unknown location at the time. But like I said, over the years, was able to discover that there was a beer hall that was being renovated into a restaurant beer hall kind of a thing. Slightly different than what it was originally. And I believe that's the Haxenbauer. Okay? Just in case you don't see what it's looking like, that's the name of the restaurant now. And of course, this is the wooden item. And here's the actual description of the item when it was first originally sold. Talking about where it was located and that nobody wanted to be identified. Okay. It's in the newspapers and in the on the internet also, of course. This is the new owner, and that's the new location right there. And it talks about the restaurant being opened up. Okay. And here's some more details of the move. Talks about the owner, talks about the relocation date. It was opened in 2024 officially. Okay. And here, of course, is some of the owners. I think there's a couple of them. And of course, this is in the basement, ironically. And that's the location. And then here they are after it was opened. Okay, I'm going to go do a close-up of the items here again. Okay, and it was hung up. Now, I am told that there was a possibility of a second item because everybody knows the Blütenorden has two sides, and this is one side. So there might be another one of these out there, but with the opposite end of the metal. Right? Now this is, like I say, hand carved out of heavy wood. Pretty neat. All right. If you want to, you can put some questions in on the bottom and enjoy. Hello guys, this is Frank from In the Footsteps of World War II. I posted a video on a watercolor I had a couple of years back, and this is it. This particular watercolor is painted by the failed corporal, as they would say sometimes, or the real name of this failed artist is Adolf Hitler. Okay, and this is actually in pretty decent shape, but does have some damage. I'm going to zoom in on the location of this one. There's some damage. And there's the artist's painting signature that he applied. Okay, now this particular painting was, which is a watercolor, was done in Vienna, Austria, and Adolf Hitler attended or moved to Vienna in 1908, and in 1908 he had already applied one time the year before for the Art Institute in Vienna, which he failed. In 1908 he decided that he was going to do another attempt at the Art Institute, and he had to have a scrapbook that he applied with every time he attended the testing, sketchbook. This particular painting is done in 1908, and the reason why I know that for a fact is Hitler went to Vienna in 1908, and this particular church that he drew or painted was called the Alte Ottawakringe Kirche. Okay, and this is off of Thalia Straße in Vienna. Okay, the church underwent growth, and they had decided to make it bigger. And during construction for the larger church, they had to use scaffolding. And in this particular watercolor painting, there is no scaffolding. So that tells me that this painting is 100% pre-1909, which is when the construction was started for the growth of the church. This particular piece came out of Austria, Vienna in English, or Wien in German. It was tucked away at a museum, what do you call them? I guess the word I was looking for is a museum director, or... But anyway, this was tucked away, and it has a stamp of ownership on the back, not a stamp of authentication. Now, I know some people did authentications for artwork, and sometimes they would stamp an authentication stamp on there. But this one does not have a stamp for authentication, has a stamp for ownership, because the art director kept this one for himself, one of those forbidden arts that they don't want published. But again, going back to this painting, it has some really interesting color, even though it's dark. You can see the clouds, you can see the shapes pretty well. And of course, like I said, I'm able to determine that this is a pre-1909 watercolor. And if Hitler attended Vienna or visited or moved to Vienna in 1908, that tells us that this painting was done in 1908. Same year as his last museum, his last art institute test is what I meant to say. Okay, now what I'm doing here is we're looking at the same church, and obviously this photo, because this is what it is, it looks like a photo, not a painting. This photo is of the church in approximately the same exact spot as where Adolf Hitler was, but it looks like this position is a little further to the left of the spot in the artist's watercolor. Same exact church, okay, and which is pretty interesting. You can compare the two and obviously see the resemblance. Okay, and here is another, well, this is actually a watercolor of sorts also, but this time not of Adolf Hitler that I know of, but this time it's going to be the front entrance of the church. So on the left side you'll see the tower, that's the front door below it. So to gain perspective, the watercolor from Hitler was done on the left side rear of that tower. Okay, so in 1909 construction continued for the expansion of the church, and again here is another view of the front area, door, and the tower, and behind it, which is the area where you see the scaffolding now, behind it, that was the area to the right where Hitler did his drawing or his painting. Same church with scaffolding. Okay, and here is a post-reconstruction picture of the church and its expanded portion on the rear. So if you look at this picture to the left, far left, you see the tower, and beyond that tower to the left is the front entrance, then the hall right behind the tower, and then to the right and in the middle you'll see the new church as it is constructed after 1909. The neat little thing about this watercolor painting is that it has a opposite side. On the rear of the same painting, there is the beginning stages of drawing a building or church, okay, and also a tower. So this whole thing was either first used or modified and then continued on the other side. Okay, and here is the tower, the beginning stages of painting a tower of sorts, also on the rear. Okay, and on the rear of this painting there is a ownership stamp, not a certification. This particular owner's name is on here. He was also, if I remember correctly when I looked him up, was a person who certified paintings, okay? Now this one is not his certification that this is authentic. This is his owner. He put his ownership stamp on this for the purpose of letting people know this is his, okay? Not the authentication version that he has. The authentication version has a lower part to this stamp with other written words and maybe a signature. And for fun, I just wanted to add some stuff that I found that belonged to Hitler and I think was taken out of his Munich apartment, with some paintings and watercolors that Hitler had on the side, apparently. It appears he has dabbled into just painting on his own free time and nothing special. And this is all his stuff that came out of the apartment in Munich. Again, if you can tell, there's several paintings that he has. This again is the one that came out of his apartment in Munich. Now another neat little thing is there's a U.S. Army military base that has a whole bunch of his art collection, and here are 4 of them. The funny thing is they look almost like mine, similarly. And then another view of this. Now this was off of a television special where they were talking about Hitler's artwork, and this is what's recovered in a military base museum. Okay, and to finalize this, here again is the art work from Adolf Hitler. And if you have any thoughts, post it on my site. I appreciate it.